being blocking us from communicating with our patients about what they need is such a disservice. Like if we're supposed to be helping people and they're going to a dispensary up the street because they're a medical patient, like why can't we have that conversation?
Is the show for me and you, the one you love to listen to, and ooh, you got your friends, see it through. See, 'cause laughter is medicine too.
Hello, my name is Angela Edge, and this is the Edge Show.
I'm Wendy Love Edge, and this is season 7, episode 20, the final episode. The opinions expressed by our guest may not be those of Edge Productions. How are you, Angela? This is our final episode.
I know. So the elephant in the room.
Is that the elephant in the room?
I don't know. We're in the same house right now and still using Zoom.
That's true.
Because I did not want to set up a whole video audio recording system for one last show.
I don't blame you. We've been doing it by Zoom for so long, and we were in different locations.
Yes.
As I am trying to embark back into my profession, and now we're back in the same house. Imagine that.
Imagine that. You should come over. You should come over to my side of the house.
I might just do
and
that.
And say hi to prove that you're actually in the house.
All right. I think I'll do that. Okay. All right. Hang on.
Okay. What else is back there?
Same house. The house. Same house. If you're on podcasting or radio, you just have to believe us.
Yeah, right. All right. Get out of here.
It's the final episode. And, I just feel like we've been bringing together plant medicine, wellness, women's empowerment, music and art for a long time. And I feel like we've sort of made our point.
Are you sure about that?
I hope people get that, that they come from the same place in the human spirit and they kind of all belong together, in my opinion.
Right.
So it's been a lot of fun, and it really warmed my heart to see some of the videos that people sent in wishing us well on the end of the Edge Show.
Yeah. So what's next? We don't know yet. Wendy's gonna do her own thing.
I'm gonna do my own thing. You and I have been working together on this for a long time, and I want to go in some directions that you're not really all that interested in.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine to do separate projects.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're good at different things. So
That's
it's
true.
Okay. We are two separate people.
No way.
Maybe I'll become a realtor. Who knows?
Maybe.
And I'll be like the lumberjack realtor. Wear my lumberjack hat.
The lumberjack realtor.
Yeah.
Yes.
And flannel shirt.
Yeah, it feels like Edge Productions is producing different things now than pre-pandemic and during the pandemic. So we're switching gears, and it's exciting. Sometimes it's good also to kind of end things when it's going well. I remember having this conversation a long time ago with someone else, and they were like,
yeah,
people always try to ride it till the end when people aren't interested anymore.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good to finish up when people are still interested, kind of leave them wondering and maybe looking back at some old shows, and that's okay too.
Of course. So what's the next interview for this show?
For this show, I interviewed Ashley Wynn Grimes, and that is coming up next. Joining me now is a registered nurse and the founder of Cannabis Nursing Solutions, LLC, and the author of the children's book, Aces Medicine, and the book, Stigmatized. Ashley Wynn Grimes, welcome to the Edge Show.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited that you're here. I had the chance to look over some of your material and got me really excited. And so I would like to know first, because I love the the idea behind what you're doing and empowering health professionals, particularly nurses. What kind of brought you to that place where you wanted to do that?
It's a long journey, which is why I ended up in the book. But
Mm-hmm.
I was working on the floor and just doing everything like everybody told me to do. Be a nurse, get married, have your children in that
Mm-hmm.
order exactly. And but I was still doing stuff like under the radar that wasn't necessarily according to the life plan that was prescribed for me. But as I went through my career, it was always about let's get to the next thing, let's get to the next thing, let's get to the next thing. And it
Right.
wasn't until I made it to my corporate position for a 14 hospital system where I was like, wait, what's the next thing?
Mm.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where I was going. And ironically, around the same time, I experienced a cyber theft. So that's when I started, and 15,000 like just gone, period,
Wow.
out my account. So
Oh my
I started,
gosh.
it was terrible. It was terrible. And people didn't really understand why it affected me psychologically. And so that's when I ended up like kind of looking into more self-care stuff because I'm a nurse. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't deal with doctor, like what does a doctor know, right? So I started looking for different ways to help support myself mentally and physically,
Mm-hmm.
but not without having going through all of the turmoil that goes into discovering yourself, rediscovering yourself.
Sure.
And so the first step was identifying yoga, making that part of my practice, just kind of being in my body and being okay with it.
So I'm also a health professional. I'm an occupational therapist, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't learn one thing about the endocannabinoid system in school with all of the science courses and, even, um, gross anatomy and, looking at a cadaver, all of it, right? Not one word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts about that in our education as health professionals? And where would you like to see that go?
I think it's a travesty. Like, how are you ignoring a whole system that is responsible for homeostasis in the body? If you're ignoring one aspect of your body, that means you're not ignoring the entire body, which means you're ignoring other aspects of yourself as a whole.
There's so much stigma and so much fear surrounding even teaching children about it. It makes
Mm-hmm.
just no sense. So you wrote a children's book.
Yeah.
How is that experience and how's it been received?
It is, I personally feel like it's a little bit before its time. So I'll start with how I came up with the idea. So I think it was 2020 during the pandemic. In Maryland, we had a bill passed that allows children to have access to medical cannabis in schools, which
Mhm.
means the nurse has to be the person, most likely, they call it a designated provider, will administer the medical cannabis on school grounds. And it was brought on by a child advocate who essentially his parents had to go to the school, get off of work, go to the school, take him off of campus, give him his tincture, drive him back to school because they couldn't give it to him on campus,
Wow.
take him back to school, and then, escort him back to class.
I mean,
And
what other medication do we have to do that with for our children?
nah.
That's insane.
And if the goal is for the school is to not have so much disruption to get the most out of your learning environment, that's uberly disruptive.
Yes.
So eventually they were able to get this bill passed, and I was invited to be on a work group to help build the guidelines for Maryland school systems. And so it's a well-written document. I was able to contribute what I knew, my nursing knowledge, what I knew about cannabis to that document. But I still had questions, like, just basic day-to-day stuff that I could imagine seeing in a child occurring. So if that child, was a medical cannabis patient, you would expect them to speak freely about it because that's part of their experience. But if
Sure.
they were to speak freely to another child, would that induce bullying to some degree? Because that other child's experience may be marijuana is bad, right? That's the
Mhm.
conversation that they're probably having with their parents because they came up in the 80s, 90s, whatever. Essentially, the children's book was written. It was inspired to kind of tell that story from my imagination, like how I imagine how it could be And so essentially it talks about a little boy named Asa, who is a cannabis patient. He comes to Maryland. He goes to school. He raises his hand and he's like, hey, I I need to go get my cannabis now. And everybody's shocked. And he goes to the class. And I imagine the school nurse coming and teaching the class and, just showing them that he's a regular kid, just like everybody else.
I love that. I love that. That is so needed. I don't know what other laws exist like that around the country, but I imagine that it's something that's being addressed in many communities. So the book may be a little ahead of its time, but it's going to be very useful going forward, I think.
I hope so. I hope so.
So tell me a little more about Cannabis Nursing Solutions and what you're doing with that business.
Sure. So the goal is to educate other healthcare providers about cannabis medicine. There are full university programs out here. That's not my approach. I take it from an implementation point of view. If you were to see a patient today, like how using your nursing judgment, would you assess that patient, diagnose that patient, provide plan of care for that patient, teaching them different ways to help monetize their knowledge.
Nice.
Without doing all of the traditional things like the hospitals don't really want us in there with our knowledge. So how can we create something on our own? How can we leverage social media? How can we market ourselves as a subject matter expert and a thought leader? So, yeah.
Wonderful. That is also much needed. I was mentioning to you that I recently went back to work as an occupational therapist after a long break, being disabled. And what I didn't talk with you about before the show was my experience with not being able to talk about cannabis with my patients, many of whom really would have benefited from it, and how sad that really is for the patient. So I think you're a pioneer and helping professionals to really find ways to help their patients, and that's so important.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's really true. Blocking us from communicating with our patients about what they need is such a disservice. Like if we're supposed to be helping people and they're going to a dispensary up the street because they're a medical patient, like why can't we have that conversation?
Right. And, unfortunately, until prohibition is truly ended federally, that's part of the stop gate to doing that. So, I'm hopeful. We had President Biden was the first president who addressed it at all, really. It's not enough. I know it's not enough, but at least it's a start.
Yeah, and bringing it to the limelight for the average public. The average person in the public. So we're making progress, I guess.
I think it's always baby steps with cannabis.
I know.
Little by little legalization is happening. It's like step by step by step. So it's hopeful anyway. So another part of your platform has to do with diversity as well. Let's talk a little bit about that and why that's so important.
So really it's about including the people who are most impacted by the war on drugs. And so maybe not me specifically and directly, but knowing that I have friends and family that literally sit in jail to this day for possession of marijuana. And then also recognizing that I went to a HBCU in the inner city and just kind of seeing how certain behaviors would happen between the police and the people in the city. And so, it's unfortunate that so many people have been impacted. And then beyond just me being Black, right? Like I identify as a Black woman, recognizing the indigenous people, other brown communities that have also been impacted by the war on drugs to this day, essentially. And, ultimately this plant is a lifesaver for a lot of people, and people are making money off of this legally, right? And there are literally people rotting away behind the same plant that people are making money off of. So
it's sickening, really. I know. I think about that all the time, and Black and brown communities were the most affected by the war on drugs, and poor communities, frequently they're tied together, unfortunately. And yeah, so I think that it's really important to include it in anyone's platform. So I'm really happy to see it on yours.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I just hope that as we continue to decriminalize and to create programs for our cannabis, programs, that we include something that helps support other people, even people from the legacy market, to being able to be legal participants in this industry.
So what is your hope for the future? Do you see changes in curriculum for health professionals, especially doctors? What would you like to see happen?
At bare minimum, just like maybe that 15-20 minute conversation about the endocannabinoid system.
Right. Well, they get about that much about nutrition, so why not? Why not also for the endocannabinoid system?
I mean, just this much, a little pie, a little slither of the pie going towards, let's have this conversation. But generally, I think that there should be a treatment care plan on our EMRs that say, hey, does this person consume cannabinoids? What's their method of consumption? What are their preferences? How often? How frequently? Just so we can have a better understanding of the patients that we're serving, especially because of the interactions between drugs. If a patient's on SSRIs and they're consuming at the same time, like, we need to know that, because there's potential for interaction there. And so just ideally, I would love to see where, when I'm doing my assessment and I'm checking your heart and your lungs and I'm asking you, do you have pain? I also say, do you consume cannabis or any other herbal medicines to help support your wellness?
Right. And I think that conversation about other herbs sometimes exists, depends on the facility, the state, all that. But they specifically leave out the cannabinoid part of it. So I have the same hopes that you do, and we'll just keep putting that out there into the universe and continue with this wonderful work that you're doing.
Thank you.
So how can people get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Cannabis Nursing Solutions, or you can find me at www.cannabisnursingsolutions.com.
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm Dr. Brian Nickel, your cannabis expert for CannabisExpertMD.com, with another cannabis pairing for the Ed Show. So this pairing, this is for you girls and really anybody else that's looking for a little bit of inspiration. Now, cannabis, of course, has a very long history of inspiring artists. Salvador Dali, he's very, very famous for depicting some of the effects of cannabis, particularly the stretching of time in this particular painting here. Hunter S. Thompson, now famous author, he used cannabis as well as lots of other drugs for inspiration. Harold Ramis and the crew from Caddyshack, they probably couldn't have made that movie without the influence of cannabis. Cab Calloway, the jazz man, of course, he used cannabis a lot for inspiration. Even William Shakespeare is thought to have used cannabis for inspiration, as cannabis residue was found in some of the pipes that he did use. Bet you didn't know about that, Mr. Producer, did you?
Well, we actually ran one on that.
Yeah, I know
a couple
we
months
did.
ago.
I get it all from him when it comes to the history stuff, that's for sure. So, Angela and Wendy, I'm going to suggest something different for you guys. I'm going to suggest a Delta 8 product. Now, Delta 8 THC, it's a little bit different from the Delta 9 variant. Most people are familiar with from smoking some cannabis, in that it's structurally a little bit different. A double carbon bond moved from the 9th carbon to the 8th carbon on the molecule. Now, that is relatively significant. It does make it much more potent in shutting down nausea, but it also makes it less euphoric. It does not make you as high. Now, my artist patients, they seem to tell me that the Delta 8, they do feel euphoric and get a lot of creativity from it, but it is not as impairing as the Delta 9 variant of THC, so they can actually produce some quality work. Now, I selected, based on cannabinoid and terpene profiles available to me, a particular product for you today, and that is the 3CHI Blue Dream vape cartridge. It's important that you really vet your Delta 8 products. Delta 8 is an entirely unregulated market, and there is a lot of bunk product out there. So it's important to make sure the product that you're going to use is legitimate. These guys at 3Chai, they do extensive lab testing. They do post all of it on their websites, and they appear to be quite trustworthy. I've had patients use their products for some time now, quite successfully. I've never heard of any complaints from them. Now, Blue Dream, of course, looking at the cannabinoid profile, it is mostly Delta 8 THC. In fact, it's entirely Delta 8 THC, of course. Delta 8 being synthesized from industrial hemp. It's about 99% Delta 8 THC. Looking at the terpenes, as we always do, it shows about a 1.67% total terpenes, about average for a vape cartridge. It is heavily pinene dominant when we stack the alpha and beta pinene together at 0.92%. Myrcene is up next at 0.32%. Beta-caryophyllene and limonene, they tie right about 0.2122% each. And there's a good showing of linalool at 0.12%. One thing that's important to remember about these vape cartridges is these terpenes are usually obtained from commercial manufacturers. They're actually obtained from other plants and incorporated in these cartridges in a specific percentage. Not all Delta 8 vape cartridges do this, so it is important that you really do vet your source. Now, the pinene, that's going to give a bit of focus and energy for most patients. The myrcene, that's going to speed the cerebral effects of the Delta 8 THC before it kind of settles in with the linalool for a bit of a dreamy relaxation type of effect. The beta-caryophyllene, that's going to really chase off some depression. And the limonene, that's going to give it a little bit of a mood lift and takes away some of the anxiety of the real world so that you can concentrate on things of art and beauty for a change. For more information on all things medical cannabis, be sure to check us out at CannabisExpertMD.com. We're also available on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Cannabis Expert MD.
Well, what a great last interview for this final episode with Ashley Wynn Grimes, wonderful author and really a warrior in the cannabis community. And
Yes.
of course, Cannabis Expert MD. We always love that.
Mm-hmm.
So Angela, thank you so much for working with me creatively on this project that's been the Ed Show. We started at FPTV. Big shout out and thanks to FPTV, KPSQ, Unity Radio, all of the stations that ever aired the show.
Mm-hmm. And thanks to Flint Woods.
Yeah, amazing editor, Flint Woods. Thank you.
The show wouldn't really ever go to production without Flint, so otherwise I'd have to do a lot more work than I do. So.
Yeah, it's just been such a pleasure working with this community, bringing together all of these wonderful subjects and giving people a voice and a place to show what they're doing creatively or in the wellness community. It's just been absolutely wonderful being on this journey and being on this journey with you for sure.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, thank you for getting me out of my box. And I can be a little shy and I don't like to talk a lot, but once you get me going, I keep going, right?
That's true.
But it's definitely, something to help me combat that within myself. And I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. And, your eye, I have found has been really important when it comes to the film part of it. And even when we talk about different subjects that we want to cover, it's just been really great working with you. And if anyone wants to put a show together, definitely contact Edge Productions because she does a phenomenal job. Well, I guess this is the final episode, final moments.
Are you gonna cry?
No, I'm not. I've gone up and down emotionally about this, but I really feel like it's time to finish this project and move on to some other things, some other topics. And I'm going to be looking at that more closely now that this episode is complete. And
we'll say goodbye to Zoom.
We'll say goodbye to Zoom. Yes.
No more Zoom. Until we need it again.
when I did a few live shows in Worcester, Mass at Unity Radio when I was there, it reminded me that I really do enjoy being in the studio, and so I may be doing some of that. We'll see what happens.
Maybe. Until then.
Until then, take care of yourselves, everyone. We love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Miss Teddy here, wishing Wendy Love Edge and Angela Edge the best as they end this journey of their life and moving on to the next one. I had so much fun being part of the show. I loved doing Food is Medicine. I loved playing around with Brandon, the radio dude, when we would do our TikToks. I'm really going to miss being a part of it, but I'm really looking forward to what you guys have in store next. I'm sending you big hugs and Miss Teddy loves.
Hey, Wendy Love Edge. I was just congratulating you on the amazing job that you've done throughout the years on this show. I was so glad to be a part of it and just seeing all the amazing things that we were able to do and all the lives that we touch and the information that we share. I think it's been pretty awesome. I know that you're not done doing the things that you do, being Wendy Love Edge. So we're supporting you and everything you do in the upcoming ventures. And I just wanted to say congratulations. And we're all so proud of the job that you've done.
I've had so much fun being a guest on the Ed Show. It's been great. I've been able to promote my projects and chat with you lovely, amazing, creative women. Angela, Wendy, thank you so much for giving me a platform to connect with people in Arkansas and people all over the world. I cannot wait to see what you ladies do next. Thank you so much for everything. I look forward to the next chapter.
This is Rochelle Bradshaw. Wendy Love and Angela Edge, thank you guys for having me on your super fun and clever Edge show. We'll miss your show in this community, but I personally can't wait to see what you bring next.
Hi, I'm Sam Nickel, the producer for Cannabis Expert MD. I had a lot of fun working for the Edge show, especially with Wendy and Angela. I really enjoyed working on our Cannabis pairings, and I'm very excited for what they are going to bring next.
It's been another great year working with Angela and Wendy at the Edge show. It's a lot of fun for us to do these Cannabis pairings. It's a bit of a goof, I guess you would say. It's interesting to pick out the headspace this is going to do. In addition to providing this information for people so they can use it for these purposes, I'm also hoping that by seeing that the different components of cannabis really do influence the effects that are produced, it encourages even the people that may not be medical patients but may be more on the recreational side of things to learn more about cannabis, because it can really affect your enjoyment of this particular substance.
Hey, Wendy and Angela, congratulations on another amazing season of the Edge Show. I can't believe it's coming to an end. It really just feels like a show that's been around forever. I can't imagine a time where there wasn't an Edge Show and there wasn't the dynamic duo that is Wendy and Angela producing such magical, amazing work together. I remember being on the show, being a part of it, being involved in your artwork, and I've always loved every minute of it. And thank you so much for sharing that experience with me and sharing it with so many others who just really need a little Edge show in your life. I have a cat in the background who's also bidding you adieu, and we both just wish you all the best, all the love and all the warmth. So goodbye, Edge Show, congratulations, and we'll see you soon.
The Ed Show is sponsored in part by 131 Inclusion Gallery, Lindsay Camp with Synergy One Lending,